I'm out in the garage working here, and this part of the video applies to anybody with a car, truck. What I'm doing today is replacing a blown brake line on my Excursion, but the difference between replacing the brake line on my Excursion and any other vehicle is the brake line. What I'm doing today is using this new or newer available copper nickel ferrous alloy brake line. It won't rust. It's supposedly lifetime, and I mean, considering, I don't know, the brakes on my Excursion are 19 years old, like the brake lines are 19 years old, so technically this could be a lifetime brake line to replace on your vehicle. So I bought a spool because I have quite a bit to change on the Excursion. Some of my tools here on the bench, these are all just brake line, even an old school brake line cutting tool. Just put it on, I'll show you how to use it shortly here. And then any bender will work, cheap ones, or even to ones that you put the line in, and then you can go from 0 to 90 degrees if you want perfect bends. So, and then like an actual, these are the tools you use for flaring the brake lines. This one here I've had since I was a kid. It's an old school tool, but they're still available. And it has multiple sizes you flip around. It's a really neat tool. And then the standard flaring kit with all the little dies. And this tool here is to clean it up in the end. You get to work. Okay, when you jack your vehicle up, I like to use a block of wood between the jack and the pumpkin. And the axle is a good place to put jack stands for your safety. And you're working in the dirt like I do a lot of times. A nice piece of 5/8 or 3/4 inch plywood to support your jack stands. Basically, you know, can't be too safe. Under here, I'm going from here all the way down along. Let's see if I can turn. This is where my leak is, right here. It blew out. And then it goes up along the rail all the way up to the front here. I'm going to pull this whole line out, try and get it out in one piece. I want to duplicate the line. Find the easiest thing to do to get these off is just cut the line. Let's cut. Slip a 5/8 wrench over top. You can put a, box wrench on it, and 7/16 socket. It's easier to break the line free. All right. Okay, that's off. Don't throw this away. Hold on to it. You see where I cut it? Hold on to it. Get that line. You just slowly work your way along. Just get it out of this groove. Some of these are fairly easy to pop out. Others you have to just push on it a little bit. Just work your way down until the line's completely out. Up here in the front, I've got 7/16 flare wrench on the line. But the problem I'm running into here is
This line is so corroded. I'm hoping that I can get this off. Okay, so, okay, I want to get a socket on there. Hopefully this will break free or break. I think maybe. That off.
Okay. So like always, you get involved in a job, you get everything all torn apart, you think you have everything to get the job done, and I can't locate my new fittings. I took the old fittings off. This is the one that was on this end, and this is the one that was on this end. And I'll show you real quick here. A lot of times, if the fittings are still in good shape, I salvage them. I'll cut this pipe off and knock it out. I can show that here shortly. The union that was in there is a little rusty, but the line nut, inverted flare line nut, is more than rusty. If I had put a wrench, on that, you can see it better on my glove. If I had put a wrench on that and started cranking on that there, it had just stripped. It's so rusty. So I was hoping to reuse this because there's nothing wrong with them if they're not rusty. But I had to run out and go to the auto parts store. And I didn't really feel like running around all day long. There's a brand new one. And I got a brand new brass union, brass line nut and unions. But the store only had one, so I end up buying another line which has one on each end, you know, obviously. So I'm going to take this line and cut it and utilize these and save those for later for something else. I'm going to open the package here. Copper nickel ferrous alloy to make this job a permanent one, hopefully. What I'm going to do is stretch it out, try to make a fairly straight, stretching it out, try to make it fairly straight, just be less work for you in the long run. It's a 25-foot roll of 1/4 inch that I'm using right now for this main line going from front to rear on the Excursion. I have to move indoors as soon as I can get this done.
I have it fairly straight. Bend it a little bit. This line is really bends easy, so you almost don't need a tubing bender. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull this line back to the point where I got to start, or I want to start. Get myself a little piece of tape. What I'm going to do is use tape. Pick a starting point. Tape it on here. That's my starting point. Now, with that as a starting point, I can literally just follow the line. Tape off of it. Pretty close. Toss this old line. So that's the basic shape of the new line that's got to go in. Take it inside, we'll put the fittings on the end and get it up in the truck. Here's the line I just bent. This is my workbench disaster area. That's the line. Okay, I've got the line here laid out, and I've made a mark with a magic marker where I want to cut. So I'm just going to put my cutting tool on here. All I'm going to do is just go around. The line appears to be really soft, so it's not going to take a whole lot.
do like a little turn for every rotation or so. Okay. Cuts real easy. This is the line that I bought to steal the line nuts off of. So I'm just going to cut the end off of it. Do the same thing right here. That's it. Cut off. Now I can take off both those. So that's the original one that came off, and this is the new one that I'm going to use. The longer of the two, I'm going to use up with the unions, compression union. Brass inverted flare fitting. So if you're buying these separate, you're looking for a line nut inverted flare and a brass inverted flare fitting to make your connection to your union. Position is to show you how to do double flare. First and foremost, don't forget to put your fitting on, because it sucks to do a double flare and then realize you flared it and didn't put your fitting on. So I'm going to loosen my tool up. Okay, you have right on the tool, you can see you're looking for the 1/4 inch line. Clamp it around there. Your flaring adapter has these lines on it. This first, something to point with. When you look at this flaring adapter, this first line here, from here to here, is the height you want this line to stick out of the tool here. So I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So it's not this line, it's the first line. Okay, so what I mean is, I'll put this right alongside of it. Put it right alongside. I got the adapter, and I got the line at the same height. I'll flip this over, and I'll get the line caught in place that holds it. So you always want to clamp the end closest to the line first, because this clamp here on this other side will sandwich it nice and hard. And with that in place, your line at the right height, you want to take the tit of the adapter and stick it in your line. Get the other tool out, wind it up. This is what you're going to compress it with. Now with the adapter in, just slip your tool over top.
Okay, now that I've got the tool in place, you can see it's got the adapter in place, the line. You're going to start crushing it down. I'm going to crush it. If you look in there, it's crushed all the way flat, right to that. Now, you want to loosen it. Crush it all the way flat, you loosen it. Pull this out. Okay, you can see, crushed it down. It's a single flare with the adapter. So you're done with that. Now to get your double flare, all you have to do now, you need to go for your double, D as in dog, double. Put it in place. Back in there. Now, same thing. I'm going to crush it down. Now I'm used to steel line. Steel line is much harder to crush down, so you don't want to overkill it because you might split it. But it looks pretty good. That's your double flare. Now you come back in here with the tool and ream it a little bit if you want to, make it smoother. Loosen your farthest one. Loosen your closest one. Take it out. There you go. That line is ready to install. I'll do the other side, and I'll be able to put this whole line in. You can blow through it if you want. Blow through it. Make sure you didn't put any filings or anything in it. And I'm going to put a piece of tape on it over the end, so when I go to stick it through the vehicle, I don't shove any dirt into the end of the line. Okay, last night showing the tape I put on the fittings to keep the dirt out of the end, and the line duplicated. Showing you here all the way up to the end where it's cut off because I had to get it in around the fuel pump, so you can get the idea approximately. Come to figure, this line's pretty soft and bends real easy, so pretty soft, but still pretty nice stuff. We'll see how it works. I'm gonna got the line down underneath here with me. What I want to do is slide it towards the rear to fish it up towards the front. Up here now, the way this went before, you kind of can't see because the drive shaft's blocking, but over here, right over here, is the fuel pump, and it went underneath. It went underneath this fuel line here, and I'm not going to go underneath the fuel line this time because in order to get this old line out from underneath the fuel line, I had to cut it. So I don't want to cut the new line here. I'm going to peel the tape off so I can reveal my fitting. Have my new brass union to replace the union that was on here that was rusty. I was saying is the one side even though the nut was kind of on here and frozen, the line is not rusty. So I'm going to reuse the front part of that line. The line going forward, I've inspected it, it's completely rust free, so I'm not going to replace that line. So I'm just going to install a new union to connect these. Okay. Now, for who knows what reason, but that union's 13 millimeter right from the auto parts store. Yet everything that's on here, the line nuts are 7/16. Figure that one out. Okay, so what I was saying, to get this line connected, and I want to snap it in here, I'm going to stay, and the line's fairly flexible, so I can bend it around a little bit, and I want to stay within the distance here, but I want to stay on the outside of that. So I'm going to get my new line hooked up. Get it started before I clip it in. It's so bright outside. I can't see what I'm doing in here. Alright, I think I got it started. Alright, I got it started. I'm going to tighten it down. You just want to make sure when you're installing these lines aren't rubbing together and chafing on each other. So I get it all tight. Now, the union that I took out of here, the best I could tell, all this line was the original line on the truck. And it's factory, with a factory steel union, and the line was the original line. So all right, now as I tighten that twists the line, but like I said, this line's pretty flexible. Snapped in. If you have to tweak and bend it to where you want it, you do it while it's in the truck. I like the way that flows better. Adjust it a little bit here. So it's snapped in. From the rear rubber line along the frame in the clips, new copper nickel ferrous alloy brake line. With all the time and effort I spent to run new lifetime brake line from up in the front to back here, even though these back lines are in decent shape, you know, they don't appear to be rusty. They're just dirty. There's a little bit of corrosion around right in the nut there, the line nut. I can see it. I'm going to replace all these back here with lifetime brake line, because there's no point in doing one and then having to bleed the brakes and everything, and then maybe in the future, maybe it could be a year, it could be 2, could be 5 years from now, might have to replace these lines. So here, I'm just going to make it easy on myself and cut this line. Cut that line out. And we'll do the other side too at the same time. Get all the brakes done. Come on. Okay. And the purpose for cutting them is because I could just throw a socket on here and just wrench them out. It just makes it easier. Those factory nuts are 7/16 the line nut. And I'm using a 16 millimeter. That's 16 millimeter for this. I think that's also 5/8. Just that's what I grabbed. Just try yanking this line out of here. There's a little clip. You see it up there. This line was clipped into that little clip right there. So just don't go yanking the line out. Pull off that little clip first before you pull the line out. So now we can duplicate these lines and put the new ones on.